Let go.
Welcome to Letting Go with Grace. I'm Dr. Tasha.
And I'm Porcha. We're family.
We want to share our relationship with you. This is a safe space where no topic's off limits. We're successful, ambitious women, wrapped in Black girl magic, and we're on a mission to have it all. Love, peace, and the freedom to be authentic.
We let go of control and judgment, learning to give ourselves grace as we implement biblical principles to do life God's way.
So, Portia, you ready?
I'm ready. What about you? Are you ready?
Ready to let go.
All right, welcome to Letting Go with Grace. I am your host, Dr. Tasha.
And I'm Coach Porcha. How y'all doing?
Good morning. How's everyone doing in the Letting Go community? We are excited. This is our final episode of the season. So if you have not, go listen to the other episodes of the season. I think they're going to bless your life. I felt really good about those episodes. What do you think, Coach Porcha?
Oh, man, it was definitely a journey. I absolutely enjoyed the interviews. It was so much fun to have others join us on the calls and be able to talk through some topics. So, yes, much like Dr. Tasha just said, it's definitely one for the books. I think this is a really good season that everybody's going to really enjoy. I can't wait to go back and look at many of the recordings myself. So it's going to be exciting.
Yes, absolutely. So if you have not, subscribe to our channel, and then share an episode that blessed you with one of your good sister girls so that her life can be blessed as well. So this is our final episode of the season, like I said. And prior to us hitting record, we were just talking about I was talking about being overwhelmed with information, and how it's like causing me not to be consistent in this season. And so I'm just curious how just being that looks like for you. What are your thoughts about that, Coach Portia?
I think we live in a world of distractions. There's information overload. You know, this generation, or the time that we're in now, is much different than how we grew up. We didn't have information at our fingertips, and while that is amazing to have so much information, don't nobody have to go to the library and learn anything new like we used to have to, or read a book in order for you to understand concepts and stuff like that. The world of information, which is what we have now, you have info at your fingertips, and it's available. So there's no excuse, right? There's the silver lining. There's no excuse for not understanding because the information is so readily available. But one of the downfalls to having all the information is that you have a whole lot of information. You have to decipher between what's true, what's not, what you should focus on, what you shouldn't focus on, who's the expert, who's just given their life experiences, who's grounded in what. Like, there's so many things to navigate in this world of information. So for me, I have, recognizing that I have engulfed myself in a lot of info, just kind of taking a break from some of it and just relaxing my mind, my body, my spirit, my soul, to allow some information to just resonate with me and sit with me, rather than taking in more information that I'm not using. Because if you just taking in information and nothing practical is coming from it, then it's just information overload with nowhere to go. So that's kind of that's where I sit, and it's a very different way of thinking about it. I used to think about, studying the Bible. I felt like I needed to get as many words in as possible. Like, I needed to read from the beginning to the end, and I need to know every single scripture, and I need to, dedicate it to memory. I should be able to call out scriptures like everybody else, because that's what Christians are supposed to be able to do. You need to know the word. But I understand it different now. Last year, I read Romans for a whole year and read it over and over and over again. And just to let everybody know, I did not memorize one of those scriptures, even in the amount of time that I read it. Just so y'all know, it wasn't like commit to memory. But it's like, now it's more about the meat of the matter. Like, rather than just taking in the information It's like, what can I gain from this information that's going to be that's something that I can actually apply to my life, rather than making sure I put, being able to say, I read the Bible from front to back does nothing for you. Like, it would be better for you to take one scripture and meditate on it and change your life from it than to read the entire book and just say I read it and that did nothing.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
That's my thought about info right now.
And I'm thinking about when you were talking, like I'm thinking about what is the root of this behavior, for high performers or over achievers. There seems to be a consistency in information overload and taking in information. And so,
Mhm.
while you were talking about even just reading the Bible, and then being able to stop and say, like, no, how do I digest the information that I'm taking in so that it becomes practical? Because I think that that's the purpose of information. We should see it begin to change our lives. The information that we take in should start to transform us in some ways. Um, and so I guess I'm curious, like, what is that? I was just trying to, like, I was just being mindful and kind of feeling in my body where that comes up for me. What the root cause of it is, the need to take in information, so much information, and double dipping. So what I mean by double dipping is, um, just having not focusing on anything, right? And so doing everything but nothing, but not focusing on anything. And as I was sitting here as you were talking, I could kind of feel it, like, in my abdomen, in my gut area.
Mm.
Um, Usually for me, that's usually where my anxiety is stored.
Uh-huh.
Um, and usually for my anxiety, I usually connect it to some type of adequacy,
I get it.
right?
Mhm.
So, and y'all be patient with me because I'm walking, I'm talking to y'all as I'm trying to figure it out for myself.
Right.
Um, and I think what is happening, is a learned behavior that I need to know the thing, right? And I'm trying to, and I want to say maybe that is tied to the I have to be better than,
Hmm.
scenario growing up. I know I haven't talked about my story in a while, but I grew up and I was usually the only black girl in my class.
Hmm.
Um, and I remember even being in the nursing school in the nursing program and having a black charge nurse, and her telling me when I was in nursing school, her telling me, like, hey, you can't come up in here half stepping. You got to be better than
Mm.
your white counterparts, and you got to know this information. And there's no time, Now, mind you, I'm like 20, 21.
Right.
Um, there's no time, for you to be 20 or 21, because I ain't gonna lie, I was wilding out. I was getting at the club before.
Like most 20,
Work,
21-year-olds. Yeah. Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in the morning. Yeah, I feel no shame about it.
Right.
I enjoyed myself.
There you
Um,
go. There you go.
but yeah, so that was me, like, getting at the club before, rolling over in my scrubs to get to work at 6 o'clock in the morning. But there was just always this message for me, even in my household, like, there was an expectation that I needed to know. And
Mm.
so I think in this season, what I am wrestling with, where I'm being stretched, is dialing down the information. But I'm realizing it's such a habit. Like, I didn't realize how. I like to talk about the pain cycle, and that's exactly what I'm talking about. Like, the thing that stresses you out or causes pain, or when you're in a conflict, like, what comes up for you. So this inadequacy, if I don't know the answers, if I don't have the information, um, than what I'm doing and what I've learned to do. I remember even my mama saying, like when I didn't know anything, and I've talked to her, and she was like, because I didn't have the opportunity to get the education, I pushed y'all. Like education was my. I knew that that would equal. Like, I mean, that would what's the word? Balance things out for you. Like it
Hmm.
would give you an upper hand. And so she was
Right.
like, so that's what I wanted for my kids. And so even I remember being young and not knowing something. She's like, go get the dictionary. That's why
Mhm.
I'm always looking up words.
Yes,
And
that came from Auntie Maddie. I remember. Hmm. Yes.
go get the dictionary. We like my mama invested in those the encyclopedias. Like I had information, and she made sure that I had information. She didn't know, and what she didn't know, she made sure that she worked all the time. Her and my dad, and she made sure that um, if I didn't know it, she was able to provide for me. And
Hmm.
so what I'm realizing is that in this season, as I'm trying to slow down and just focus on something, how I'm just being challenged by it and not realizing how it's become a habit, like how this inadequacy and seeking the information has become part of this personality because
Hmm.
the being not being adequate enough. And
Yeah.
so, what I'm working on is just trying to slow down. And I created a prayer board this year.
Okay.
And one thing that I put on there was cultivating the art of stillness. It stood out to me.
Mm.
Uh, and in my prayer time, and when I'm spending time with God, even that, like even y'all, even my prayer time is a hot mess, right? Because
Hmm.
I'm praying and I'm like, oh, I need to do this. Okay, God, okay, God, I'm focused. Okay, all right, okay, Lord, speak to me. Like I can't hear your voice. See, like, cause you won't be quiet. uh,
Yes.
and that's what I just keep hearing, like him, like the Holy Spirit is telling me, like, I be still. But your girl is like, I'm antsy. I'm like the little kid at the table, like. And so I'm just
Mhm.
now realizing how a habit in this personality has been birthed out of this quest for knowledge, which is not a bad thing,
Right.
but when I'm operating from a place of this inadequacy and I have to know everything. So
Mm.
yeah.
That's really good. I hear the underbelly. I can hear the underbelly because you think like knowledgepreneur and the intent behind giving you the information was pure. The purity of I want to put my daughter in a situation or in a place where she's comfortable in any space because she has the information necessary to maneuver in the room, right? A mother's love in that instance, but the story that a child has to tell themselves in order to embark on this journey, right? So, as a child, you tell yourself a story that gives you the oomph to go do what mama told you to do. And so
Mhm.
she's saying, get the information. And as a child, because you're not able to really, you don't know enough to really see the good in it, you tell yourself, oh, I have to do this because I'm not smart enough. And now she do this to me because I ain't smart. And so this is what this means. And you apply a meaning to it. But it's also a motivation.
Mhm.
So meaning and motivation, and now you're moving in it, right? And you're learning so many things, and it's doing exactly what your mom expected it to do, but she doesn't understand the underbelly of what it took for you as a child to embark on this journey. And it
Yes.
took you telling yourself a story of inadequacy in order for you to be motivated, because you don't have anything else to be motivated by as a child, right? So you're just coming up with a story. um, and then how we have to grapple with that as we get older to
Yes.
create a new meaning that, you know, that's no longer the story. It's not a story of inadequacy. It's not, you don't have to accept that story anymore. Little Tasha, I know
Mhm.
that's what you needed in order for you to get through it. But now what's the story? Like, what are we doing with this and why are we doing it today? And I think that's how, I mean, many of us, if we think about our lives, you are grappling with the understanding of a young child in an experience, a situation, an adult now understanding that that young child didn't have enough information to make that call. But yet it's engraved in your body, your physical body,
Mm-hmm.
And you can't change the experience or the story in your physical body. You just have to redirect that story to a new place so you can feel better about it. And it's a process, right? Because I mean, think about how long you've been telling yourself this story, and now you like, oh, this is not the truth. Well, now you want, or is it really not the truth? Like you want to, I mean, come on, it got me this far. It's just this process of going through it, and that's why I'm so grateful for the grace of God that
Mm-hmm.
gives us this stillness, this pause to say nothing is wrong here. I just want to give you an opportunity to think about it in a different way.
Yes, yes,
That's
and
it.
that's it.
Mhm.
That's it's the nothing is wrong, right? And when you were talking, because I'm trying to be intentional on understanding what the the subconscious script is,
Mhm.
and that was it, right? And so it wasn't that I didn't think I was smart, because I was pretty smart, right? I didn't have to do much work
Mhm.
ever. Things just came to me naturally. But the message that, as you were piecing it together, the message that I got was it not enough? Like the
Mhm.
way that I showed up was like, so it's not enough, and so that nothing is wrong.
Mhm.
It's enough. Like nothing is wrong. Like the way that you process it, the way that I made it. Yes, it's okay to get information, but the information is added, not to make it better. Like,
Mhm.
so that's what it is. Like nothing is wrong with the way you are.
Nothing is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. When God says nothing is wasted, that's exactly what He means. And I think we're hyper focused on it. Now we're hyper focused because we recognize it. I'm sure both of us could think of a season in our life where we were oblivious to some of this, and it was just go hard, and we utilized our motivation to get to where we needed to go, and it did what it was supposed to do. It did what it was supposed to do, but we didn't understand it. Oh, that underbelly is actually affecting me in some way. Until you get to this crash and burn, and then you're like, oh, well, there was always an underbelly. There was
Hmm.
always a negative connotation, and the world is created in this way. There is good and bad. In every scenario, there is good and bad. And then we get to choose which part of this we want to focus on, understanding that both of them are there.
Yes. Yeah.
And that's what I'm trying to, even with myself, um, grapple with the fact of the good and the bad and deciding which part of that I want to focus on. Like, what part of this do I really want to pay attention to? Understanding that both of them are there. And then just trying to get through life because not in most cases, in many cases, good is an intentional process. Like, you can't focus on the good just off a whim. You have to intentionally direct your focus on good because bad is always present and it's the easiest thing to go to, right?
Yeah, because bad. Yeah, I mean, cut you off, but I
So you
was
good.
like focusing on the bad gives our brain just the consistency it needs to understand. Like the brain is looking for that constant, consistent. I'm safe.
Mm-hmm.
Danger. I'm safe.
Right. So
How do
it's
I say
hard.
safe?
It's an intentional process to like literally focus on something that's good. To choose, and you have to make a choice. You got to choose, which is so in line with the biblical principles and practices. Like, God tells us to make choices. He tells us you have free will, you get to choose. You decide, you choose. What do you want to focus on? Where's your attention going to be? How are you going to live your life? Understanding that there will always be darkness around you, but choosing to look at the light, pay attention to the light, choosing to look at the good, choosing to focus on the positive, choosing to, and it's not always easy, thank God for His grace, because we know that there is darkness around us. So you have to kind of negate what you see to focus on one thing. And it's not easy. We'll grapple with this for the duration of our lives, right? Because there's always going to be negative and positive, and we can't do anything about it. That's how life is created. Like, everything is negative and positive. Think about it. Science is negative and positive. God is negative and positive. Like, how we live our lives are negative and positive. And so we're just learning how to navigate this balance between the two
Hmm.
and figure it all out. I feel like that's where we are.
Yeah, and the labeling as well. Um, like I'm just
Yeah,
having all these aha moments right now. So, and I think that that's why it's so important to be in community
mm-hmm.
because when you are isolated, all you have is your thoughts. and,
Mm-hmm.
and what happens in isolation is just it just intensifies, and so you don't even see if you are doing the work.
Right.
I think about my clients, and I think about the purpose of therapy, or the purpose of coaching. Um, and yes, it's a two-way thing because your coach and your therapist, help you see these blind spots. But I think yesterday I spent a lot of my time slowing down my clients and just being like, wait a minute, like we're not gonna just skip over that.
Mm-hmm.
Can we celebrate these small big like I know
Right.
it seems small, but like I just talked about, like these personality, this is a habit. And I'm like, yeah, maybe it didn't change all the way. But like you said earlier, like I'm 40 years in the game. I've been doing this for 40 years. So to
Mm-hmm.
think that it's going to change because I've been intentional for the last 3-4 years, probably
Right.
longer than that, but whatever. Um, but to think that it's going to just I'll be a different person, and I think that that's a lot of times what we're looking for. And so I think I just want to slow down and just kind of celebrate myself and saying like being still, like it may not look like you imagine it, and we will create a production in our head about what things need to look like.
Ooh.
But just one, I'm grateful. Like I'm grateful to God. So just practicing the gratitude because I'm like, God, you are not asking me for these big things. Like you're just saying, like, just be still. Like I'm honoring the times that you are still. And I know that you're struggling with being still sometimes. And I know that you got things happening in your head, but I'm honoring it and how he's showing me in this moment is like I just keep getting as you talk, like just words that you're saying. It's like I'm catching. It's like I'm almost grabbing onto the words, and I'm like, oh, that was for me. And it's the yeah, like, do you see that like you're doing that? Like, okay, she's talking about this positive and negative. Like, are you aware that you operating in it right now? And I'm
Mm-hmm.
like, oh no, okay. So I'm like, so I am doing the thing. Okay, so it don't look like I think it should look, but I'm doing the thing. And so I want to encourage you
Mm-hmm.
there to slow down enough to just even recognize the change. Recognize there's so many things that when I'm still, I can be like, oh wow, like yeah, I want to work on this, but look at all of these things that I put on my goal list and I put on, my to-do list and I put on my vision boards that like I've taken off. And I may not have physically taken off, but it's not the focus anymore. And now
Mm-hmm.
it's shifting, and each season they're shifting, and each season God is giving me another word. And I'm assuming that He's giving me another word because I finished the last one. Because usually when I haven't finished, we be like, all right,
Stay in that word. Stay in that
it's
word.
this.
We're gonna stay here till you figure this one out. Yeah,
Like,
I think we do. Like you're right. Like I feel like we are so hard on ourselves at times, um, and we don't take the time to recognize the growth and just take a minute to see. You know, if I chose something different today than I normally would, that's growth. If maybe I haven't left the relationship, but I don't cry every night, that's growth. Um, you know, now on Mondays I watch a sermon instead of the Housewives of Atlanta. Um, that's growth. Like give yourself credit for the things that you're doing, because if you don't do that, then you're going to start telling yourself that you're not doing anything, and you will completely hold and say, none of this matters anyway. I'm not doing it anyway, so I might as well not. And what you have to understand is that we're going from glory to glory, from grace to grace, and it is an incremental process. This is the dash that we talk about in the moment of progression, that,
Mm.
and I know that there's a such thing as a quantum leap. There is a such thing as a quantum leap, but it is not the only way that God processes people.
Oh, that's good.
So there are many people that are focused on this exponential growth, and that's what we want, right? Because we don't want to go through the process. We would rather do the exponential growth. But what we don't realize, and Romans talks about this, is that we are building character as a result of the process. We are building perseverance. We're building resilience. We're building these characteristics. And some of these characteristics can only be built through a process. They
Yes.
can't just be quantum leaped into you. Like resilience is not a thing that you just grab. Resilience requires experience. And you've had to persevere through some things and maintain. And now you have resilience. It's not one of those things that God just drops out the sky and be like, hey, resilience, boom, because you won't know how to. What I think about, like people who win the lottery and get millions of dollars
Mhm.
compared to people who worked out a life to get millions of dollars. When you're dealing with people that come from these two avenues, and God can do both, you will see that people who worked really hard to get their million gained some characteristics over time that made them more stewardly. They stewarded their money more because it cost them something. And
Mhm.
then those that get this lump sum of money dropped into their accounts just off a whim are sometimes lost because they don't have the characteristics necessary to actually steward the money. So you hear all these stories about these people who win the lottery and lose it all. Or, I had over a million. How did you lose $1 million? I don't know. I bought everything I thought I needed, because they didn't build the characteristics necessary to maintain such a huge thing. And so negating the process is to remove yourself from the process of characteristic building. Like,
Yes.
and I would rather be a fisherman than somebody to have to feed me fish over and over and over again. And how am I able to do that? I gain the skills necessary to be able to go out and fish on my own. And I believe that's what the process is about. But we
Mhm.
don't have patience for the process for us or others. Like we ain't got no patience for process. Like figure it
Ooh.
out now. Like I see a problem, I'm gonna tell you about it. Go figure it out right now.
Yeah,
Just
and you got like this much time to get.
and you know why? You know why we do people like that? Because that's the way we do ourselves.
Yeah.
If we actually gave ourselves the time to grow, we would give others time to do that as well. And so everything really does start with us. And that's what I'm learning. Like me being able to see my own self awareness, recognize when I'm not in a good space, call it what it is, work through it, gives me the ability to give grace to others who are going through that. Like characteristics are necessary. And that's the reason why God processes us through things rather than just, He says He can give us anything. Asking, Ye shall receive.
Yes.
But what are you asking for?
Yeah.
Because He's always going to be looking at your motive. Like, why do you need that? What is
Yeah.
that going to do for you? What is it going to do for the kingdom? What is it going to do for others? Like, there's a lot of questions tied to it. He's a good father, so He ain't just going to spoil you. You know, there's what are we going to do with what we getting? And that's what I get from all of it.
Hmm.
All of the stuff that we've been talking about for sure.
Yeah. No, that's good. I think also, as you were talking, I was just thinking about the processes of change, right? Well, we talked about the bamboo season, where I can't remember the exact numbers right now, but it takes like a bamboo a certain amount of time, like a long time, but then when it begins to grow, it does have that quantum leap, like it grows feet.
Hmm.
So it may take I don't know, a year and you see no growth, and then all of a sudden, bam, you come back, and it's this the quantum leap, that we call it, or that it seems like. And then I was also thinking about my yard. And so, man, like maybe 4 years ago when we moved into this house, I had planted like underneath the tree. Wasn't any grass, so I had planted these flowers. And well, no, I just grabbed the box. I'm gonna just keep it 100. I grabbed the box of that little flower mix from the Dollar Tree
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not right. That the yard is not my thing, but I'm like,
Right.
I'll just plant these because the yard the ground is very fertile.
Mm-hmm.
So keep let's tag that. The
Right.
ground is very fertile. Um, and so I'm like, let me just plant this and see what happens. And so little things will grow here and there. Um, but yeah, in the winter season, why did I have green, like just a patch of green grass from
Right.
what I had planted 4 years ago?
Yeah.
Right. And then also, not only that, things that I planted last year that had died are blooming again.
Mm-hmm.
And so that just makes me think about our life and our process. And so sometimes we aren't seeing it. One, because we don't slow down enough. Because I had to be intentional and being able to say like, oh my God, like I didn't even realize like look at this grass growing. So being intentional about looking at the growth and paying attention to the growth and calling it growth. Um, but then also just realizing because I haven't done anything else to the flowers that I planted last year. Like I planted that was a something that my therapist had me do. And I told her, I'm like, child, I hope they stay alive, but I don't know. But I did it, right? So, but I planted it. Uh, and what I planted grows whether I'm managing it or not, right? And
Mm-hmm.
so yes, there are some things that we do have to manage, but what I'm realizing is just like that inadequacy story. Um, okay, hold on, I'm gonna change my mind mid sentence, right? Because I'm thinking about not realizing, even with my adequacy story, I was feeding it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Every time I look, but not intentionally. And
Right.
so what I'm realizing is that I've been doing the same thing with these other things that I'm planning, right? Just the discipline and the self control and focusing on just, fine tuning my purpose and realizing being intentional on the way that I'm talking to myself and making sure that like I'm listening to the conversations in my head. And I'm being intentional about when things are coming up and I'm saying like, I don't receive that, brain.
Right.
Be true, but I don't receive that. And then I tell other people, right? So I'm telling other people, like I hear people saying stuff, and I'm like, I don't receive that. Like, okay, like yeah, it's true, but I don't receive that. And so the things that I'm taking from the coaching room, the things I'm taking from the therapeutic room, and I'm using it, um, but I may not be using it all the time, and so I'm judging myself because I'm like, you need to do more of it. Like it's that do more, right? That overachieving, high performing. You need to do more of it. Um, um, and I'm saying like I'm not doing more, but what I'm realizing is even in the being intentional in what I'm doing,
Mm-hmm.
like it's growing just like my flowers. Like I planted it. The rain is coming. Like it's being fed. It what is happening, and so I'm seeing things bloom. But now it's just being intentional and letting go of the old story of it's my I have to control it.
Mm-hmm.
I'm
Mm-hmm.
in control. And if I don't do it, it won't get done. And so I'm
Mm-hmm.
just learning, like I'm just walking to this part of my relationship, like you talked about the glory to glory, where I'm just trusting God on a bigger scale and I'm trusting God with more. And I'm like, no, like, yeah, you got the track record. If you said it, I believe it. But just even understanding that I'm doing that continues to grow. And I think that when we're looking for these quantum leaps, which I believe in, and I believe that will happen. Y'all forgive me, I
Mm-hmm.
know you hear that ice machine.
That's okay.
That's my family. I apologize. Um, but I think that that's where our quantum leap, our bamboo seasons come from. It is just in the small things, right? Because I can just think about what's happening to that bamboo seed underneath the soil. And so a lot of things that we're dealing with is underneath the soil. And when you're a high performer or an overachiever, we are looking for that instant. Like that's the way we control our lives, like by seeing the results and trying to create the results. Um, but I'm just the art of the stillness for me is I like sitting on my hands and saying like I trust you. If you saying be still in the season, from the best of my knowledge, I will figure out how to be still, right? And so if it is
Mhm.
just hey, just focus on what's ahead of you. Like, okay, if you on a podcast, just focus on podcasting. Like, don't be podcasting and trying to download the episode and try. Just focus on what you're talking about.
Mhm.
And I'm learning to just be like, okay, right, I'm gonna be okay with it. My stillness ain't got to look like nobody else's stillness.
Mhm.
So just yeah, so just that is my letting go. And I think that this season, we've had many great guests and we've had great conversations. But I think the beauty of wrapping up the season on the true art of letting go in being still in understanding your story and looking at the progress. Like
Mhm.
asked you to do all of these things, but just taking the time to be still and see it growing, right? Like
Definitely.
the ground is fertile. We are doing the thing.
Mhm.
It's happening.
Yeah. And I just want to kind of add to piggyback on what you're saying. The thought that I was having was about the process of trusting God. We talk about letting go and trusting God. It's a simple concept, but it's not easy. I want to make that very clear to everybody. It's simple. Because one thing that I despise is to hear people say something that's so complex in such simple terms as if it's as simple as the way I said it.
Hmm.
Um, but the process of trusting God and letting go, um, for me, has not been a one decision. I'm letting go and I'm trusting God, and I never go back to it. I never talk about it again. I'm just releasing it. That's not my story. I know that that story for some people, your level of trust is in a way where you can just give it to God and walk away. That ain't my story. My story looks very different. Um, and I have to constantly remind myself that I'm trusting God, and I'm constantly reminding myself that I'm letting go because I've spent so many years trying to control so many things that it's second nature for me to try to take control.
Hmm.
The beautiful thing about the journey of healing is that I can now recognize when I'm trying to control, and I know when I need to let go. The great thing about God is that He's very consistent. He is exactly who He says He is at all times, and he understands the process of trust when you haven't been trusting. He also understands the process of letting go when you've been controlling your whole life. So we actually serve a God who understands us as people,
No,
and he gives us grace to work through to get to a place where we can truly trust him and let go. I believe that there is a place that you can get to in God where you trust him so much that you don't second guess or question him. I believe that that's a truth.
yes, yes,
um, but in that same truth, that is not where Portia is today. And I want to make that very clear. Me being who I am today, I recognize that I grapple between who I was and who I'm becoming. That that control is still something that's in me that I do have to manage. Letting go is tough because I'm a control freak, and I never controlled anything and didn't realize it, but I thought I was, and so because I thought I was, I feel like I'm controlling things now, and I still remind myself day to day, hey, God is in control. You're not in control of outcomes. I have to constantly remind myself, you are okay. Nobody has to change in order for you to be okay. These are things that I say to myself on a consistent basis that keeps me grounded. That's what keeps me grounded through this process of trusting. So if you're a person who had issues with trust, and you're just now learning this process of trusting God, and how do I do this, and I'm trying to do it and it's not working. I want to trust, but I'm not trusting, and what do I do with it? Keep coming back to him.
Mhm.
He understands this, and the more honest you can be with God, the better he can do with you. So I'm very naked before God. If I'm not trusting him in a moment, I tell him I don't trust him. If I haven't let go of something, I say, God, I haven't let it go. um, I want to let it go. I'm very honest. I want to let it go. I want to trust you. I don't want to control it. But the parts of me that normally control are right now doing that. And he's so good and so alive and well, and working within us and through us, that over the course of time, I feel myself releasing. And that's where he gets his glory from.
Yeah. Nick, when you say that is the trust, like that's what I'm learning.
That's the
I'm
trip.
learning that what you just described is the trust. And I think we complicate it just because we have not been able to trust people in our lives. Things have happened to us that have shaken up our ability to trust people. Um,
Hmm.
there are people whose tolerance for safety is higher just because of their experiences. And so, what I'm hearing you describe is trust. Like when I think about my journey, um, I've had a lot of past experiences um, that have, like I felt like nobody protected me, and um, created this sense in me where I really needed a lot of control to make sure that I was safe.
Hmm.
And because of that, like me and God went through this tug of war season. I'm like, I just, a lot like you, like, like I know you asked me to trust you, but I don't.
Right.
Like, do you see these things happening to me? Did you see like you allowed that to happen to me? Um, do you see situations that are happening to me now? I'm like, okay, so God, I'm like, okay, so I'm gonna be honest, God. Like, I trust you with some things. Like, okay, when it comes to my career, like you have been consistent in that. When it comes to my education, when it comes to provide, those are things that you have been extremely consistent and predictable in. I
Right.
trust that. But what matters in my heart, I've had my heart broken too many times.
Mm.
um, because you didn't protect me. Nobody
Mm.
protected me. And so I don't trust you. And so just me, God, like like you said, in his goodness, in his mercy, and in his grace, he was just so gentle with all of the anger in that season for me. And me being able to do this tug of war thing because with there's him. Always this disconnect. Me being able to do this tug of war with him, but walking out of this season, um, my obedience is so much faster now. And it's because I trust. Right. And trust doesn't mean that I still don't go back and say, okay, okay, God, like I'm holding on to this and I'm scared and I really don't know. Like, I don't know what to do. Can you tell me what I need to be doing? Okay, you're not going to tell me what I need to be doing? Okay, I keep coming back, but I come back because I trust.
Yeah, I love that. I keep coming back because I trust.
Yes.
Yes, because I just want to debunk the myth that your faith is flawed if you have moments of doubt. Like, I just want to completely debunk the myth, that you don't believe God because you're not comfortable in your body and you don't understand why. Like, just know that, like Dr. Tasha just said, that that is trust. Trusting is knowing that you have a place to go back to when you feel uncomfortable. You know that God is your safety if He's always the one you go back to. Like, it's just, I don't feel safe. I need to talk to God. I don't understand this. I need to talk to God. You don't need anybody to validate your relationship with you and God, but you and God. Because the world is critical, and they're going to call you whatever they think they need to call you, and they're going to label you because that's what we do. But what you know is what you know about you, and what you know is that, you know, when my back's against the wall, I'm calling on God. When I don't understand something, I'm calling on God. when things are going well, I'm thanking God. Like I recognize Him to be the divine deity that oversees my life. And as long as I know that,
Mhm.
that is all He's ever required.
Whether
You
it's a
know?
little no or a big no, right? Because sometimes,
Exactly.
like sometimes
Right.
I do, because I've had this thing in the past that when I'm feeling unsafe or I don't feel secure, like I will run as far away from God. Like I'm not praying, I'm not doing none of that.
Hmm.
Um, and even when I get glimpses of that, it will still come back sometimes, and I'll recognize it, and I'm like, well, wait, okay, hold on. I'm doing that thing that I do when I don't feel safe. Um, and then I'll just say like, okay, thank you, Holy Spirit, for bringing it to my remembrance, like that. That's what I'm doing right now, right? And just a little prayer, a little, the recognition of thank you, God. And so whether it's the big, I trust you, and there are some things like it's the hard things going from God saying. Um, Having the conversation of, okay, it's time to leave your job. And I'm like, wait a minute, no, hold up, right? A whole year, couple of years of wrestling with God telling me to leave my job, and then it took an illness for me to be able to finally say, okay, okay, God, because you
Hmm.
said, okay, I'm gonna leave. So
Hmm.
that whole year worth of trying to figure out if I trust you to, now he's asking me to do some things and I'm able to be like, okay,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna do it now. I made up my mind. Like I said, I was gonna obey. When you told me to do something, I was gonna obey. So okay, I'm gonna do it. Now I may come back and be like, okay, now what does that really mean?
Hmm.
Oh, okay, that part scared me. I'm gonna do it, but hold on, like let me. So it looks different, and so whether it's the big trust or the
A
little
little
trust,
trust.
yeah, that sometimes he like jumping. I'm like, okay. Sometimes he like jumping. I'm like, okay, wait a minute, don't nobody push me. Let me
Yeah,
let,
right.
let
I'm
me
gonna
get.
ease over here. Sometimes I am the one that jumps in the cold water and gets in there. Sometimes I stick my toe. And guess what? He accepts every bit of who I am. I
And
don't know how anybody would be able to serve a God different than the one that I serve because this is the God that allows me to be me and works with me in a very special way. I wouldn't trade him for the world. I just don't. I mean, I, I don't know how anybody lives without him.
Mhm.
And I don't know how there would be any other God you would be wanting to engage in. Like for me, because I'm like, what type of God really understands me and takes me into consideration?
Yeah.
I just, what type of God is this? That's the one and only, the true God, true living God, who loves me more than I've ever loved myself, um, and who wouldn't serve a God like that? I just,
Amen. That
I
amen.
don't, I don't know a person that wouldn't. So, yes, guys.
So, what do you have as we wrap up? What are your hopes for our viewers this season? Like, we're at the end, and if they listen to every one of these episodes, or you know, um, while they were working out, while they were in the car, if they stopped and took notes, at the end of the season, what are your hopes for our listeners?
My hope for our listeners is that you receive something. I don't think it's about the holistic view of every episode and all of the information. One thing that I recognize and understand is that I may not have the power to change your entire life, but if I could just give you one thing that could get you on a path to another place where you feel better about who you are and you're moving in a different way than you've moved before. If it's just one, I mean, it's one incremental shift one way or the other can change your entire life. If I could just impact you one kind of way where it'll just turn you a little bit and put you on a trajectory that creates the life that you've always desired. That's what I would want. If it's one quote, if it's one line, if it's one, or two things that you got, or one episode that really spoke to your heart and brought you closer to the God that created you, one, shoot, just getting you closer to the God that creates you is a just one shift that changes your entire life. But If there's just one thing that's said here, and we were able to give you a gem or feed you a seed that has the ability to grow something new in your life, I would be satisfied.
Yeah, agreed. Agreed. I think my hope is one, I hope that you know you loved.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't think that if you're listening to this, it is a coincidence. If you've listened to any episode, I truly believe that part of our purpose is to speak to the rejected and the brokenhearted and giving hope, giving a second wind, right?
Yes.
Reminding you that you are chosen, that you are the one, that you are enough. Um,
Mm-hmm.
and so my hope is that, much like Coach Portia, is that one thing, one thing,
Mm-hmm.
either planted a seed within you, watered a seed that was already there, um, or that um, whatever was growing in you, you are getting to look back and see some of the fruit because of something you heard on this podcast.
Mm-hmm.
My heart, like I think about my purpose and what I do and why I do it and why I choose to wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning on Wednesday morning. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
right. And it's because somebody did it for me.
Amen.
You know, God purposed somebody's life. And there was a word and their obedience, their yes, created something that I needed in a time where something needed to be planted or watered something that had been planted. Um, and now, even, as I continue to do my work and I show up in spaces and I'm listening to things, allowing those words to water what is growing. And I just hope that y'all feel the love from our hearts, the
Mm-hmm.
passion we have for our community. We're just really excited about the things to come. And so my hopes is that you leave here knowing that you are doing the thing. You,
Mm-hmm.
um, you're doing it. Um, do you not see it? You are
Right.
doing the
We're
thing. The new
doing it.
is happening, and it may feel messy, and sometimes you don't quite know what's being built. But I just want to encourage you that um, everything is working together for your good.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So this wraps up season 2, everybody. Can't wait to come back and see you guys. And
Yes,
because you're in this community, we know that you're ready to let go, but we gotta end with the question because that's just how we do things. So
yes. Oh,
hey.
and really quick before we ask, um, just we got some new things. So next season, I'm excited. I'm gonna speak it out there. Just I'm hoping the community. So going from just listening to us creating some events so we can actually get together and have community. I talked about the importance of community because you do get people that will stir up those things. Just it's that Mary and Elizabeth effect, where things where people will speak to the baby inside of you, and so
Mm-hmm.
create those community things. I have a workbook coming out called the Empowered Her Journal. I'm really excited to get that out there and to launch that and to get that into your hands so that you get some practical
Mm-hmm.
to let go and understand this pain cycle that I've been talking about and y'all hear me talk about. So I'm really excited about that. Portia,
Mm-hmm.
got some things coming up.
Yeah, so I am in the process of writing a book. It may take me, well, you never know. We'll see what happens. But in the process of writing a book about my story, and how I came through some of the hardships that I've encountered. Hopefully, that blesses folks to be authentic with your life and know that there's a purpose and a plan for every situation you've been in. I'm also going to be launching a mentor group outside of the organization that I work in. And so I'm excited. I've been trying to create and think about some different ways that I want to approach it. I'm talking about true practical things that you can add to your life that make change. And so I'm excited about that. And that'll be coming soon. So those are a couple things that I'm working on, and cannot wait for us to create some type of retreat, because I've been trying to do a retreat for a long time. So I'm just dropping that out in the air somewhere in the space,
And
and
people
hopefully somebody and God and everybody would grab it, because I too believe that it's time for us to get together. So lots of exciting things coming up for sure.
agree. So as we wrap up the season, we're already letting go, but we got to ask you, are you ready to let go?
Are you ready to let go?
Thank
I
y'all for
am.
joining us this season. We love you.
Bye,
Have a good
guys.